Greetings, everybody. Welcome back to Weekly Wildlife Wisdom. So far, I've been your host, Zero Yeti, and happy Pride Month as well as happy Dinosaur Day. This Dinosaur Day, we're going to be focusing on the Elliot Formation of South Africa, which can be separated into the Lower Elliot Formation, which represents the late Triassic, and the Upper Elliot Formation, which represents the early Jurassic. We're going to be focusing primarily on the Upper Elliot, beginning with the first dinosaur of the week, being Massospondylus, a genus of sauropodomorph dinosaur which lived throughout what is now Africa, India, and possibly South America from the Hetagian to the Plesbachian of the early Jurassic, some 200 to 183 million years ago. The first known fossils of Massospondylus, consisting of a collection of 56 bones, including parts of the neck, back, hip, pelvis, forelimbs, hind limbs, and tail, from various individuals, were collected throughout 1853 and 1854 by government surveyor Joseph Millard Orpin and his brothers on a farm in the Drakensberg Mountains near Harrismith, South Africa. Orpin then donated these fossils to the Hunterian Museum at the Royal College of Surgeons in London. Its curator, paleontologist Sir Richard Owen, would study, then name and describe these remains in 1854 as three new species based on differences in their supposed tail vertebrae: Massospondylus carneatus, Pachyspondylus orpini, and Leptospondylus capensis. The name Massospondylus means longer vertebrae in Greek. Owen stated he chose this name based off of the vertebrae that are proportionally longer than those of the extinct crocodile Macrospondylus. The specific name carinatus possibly hints at the pronounced keel or carnea on the underside of the vertebrae. Leptospondylus means slender vertebrae, while Pachyspondylus means thick vertebrae, respectively. In 1888, Richard Lydekker studied the material and found Leptospondylus was likely a synonym of Massospondylus, and compared the remains to similar fossils he found in the malarial beds of India, which he assigned to Massospondylus. In 1895, Harry Seeley revised Massospondylus and illustrated many of the fossils for the first time, finding both Leptospondylus and Pachyspondylus to be synonyms of Massospondylus. At the beginning of World War II, in the basements of the Hunterian Museum were strengthened to protect specimens from German bombing raids, and several collections were moved to remote locations. Despite this, on the 10th and 11th of May 1941, the museum was bombed, and this combined with heavy rains destroyed all but 23 of the original 550 specimens of the museum's collection, including the holotype of Massospondylus. Thankfully, over the 20th century, many more Massospondylus specimens would be found, making it one of the best understood sauropodomorphs. This includes a clutch of 7 190-million-year-old Massospondylus eggs that were found in the Golden Gate Highlands National Park in South Africa by James Kitching in 1976. In 1980, one incredibly complete articulated specimen nicknamed Big Mama was found on a farm near Kokolin, South Africa by Lucas Huma and James Kitching. In 2010, Big Mama was made the neotype of the genus, and today two species are definitely recognized: the type species M. carinatus as well as M. calleli. Reaching around 9.8 to 14 feet or 3 to 4.3 meters in length and around 300 to 500 pounds or 136 to 226 kilograms in weight, Massospondylus was typical of early sauropodomorphs, with a slender body, long neck, and proportionately small head. Next up is Sphenosuchus, which is an extinct genus of crocodilomorph which lived throughout what is today southern Africa during the Cenomurian stage of the, apologies if you can hear the trades behind me, of the early Jurassic period, around 199 to 192 million years ago. The holotype consisted of an excellently preserved skull, some vertebrae, and much of the forelimbs and fragments of the hind limbs was unearthed near Mount Fletcher, Eastern Cape Province, South Africa, in 1915 by paleontologist Sidney Henry Houghton. The name Sphenosuchus means wedge skull crocodile based on the unique shape of the skull. Despite naming the animal, Houghton never described the animal in depth, and it wouldn't be until 1972 that British paleontologist Alec Walker would examine and describe Sphenosuchus in detail. Apologies, I keep having things in my eye. Walker suggested, based on detail, but still preliminary at the time, studies of the skull of Sphenosuchus and other crocodilians, as well as those of modern birds, that crocodilomorphs and birds might share an immediate common ancestor. Walker recanted his hypothesis in 1985, but restated and elaborated on it, in essence de-recanting it, in a monograph published in 1990, which provided the most comprehensive description and discussion of Sphenosuchus and many other crocodilomorphs yet published. Additional remains from the Upper Triassic of New Mexico and Arizona were thought to be Sphenosuchus, but are now known to belong to its very close relative Hesperosuchus agilis. Today, only the type species Sphenosuchus acus, or acutus, are considered valid. Based on a 7.6 inch or 192 millimeter long skull, Sphenosuchus is estimated to have reached around 4.7 feet or 1.4 meters in total length. Sphenosuchus was a carnivorous and cursorial animal which walked with a quadrupedal gait, but may have been a facultative biped. Next up is Heterodontosaurus. Is a genus of heterodontosaurid dinosaur that lived throughout what is now southern Africa during the early Jurassic, around 200 to 190 million years ago. The first specimen, consisting of a crushed but nearly complete skull and some now lost associated postcranial remains, was unearthed from the side of Mount Tainidini, Africa, in an altitude of around 1,890 meters or 6,201 feet during a British South African expedition to South Africa and Basutoland, the former name of Lesotho, in 1961-1962. Today it is housed at the Izuko South African Museum. The animal was scientifically described and named in 1962 by paleontologists Alfred Walter Crompton and Alan J. Charig. The genus name refers to the different shaped teeth, and the species name honors George C. Tuck, a director of the Austin Motor Company who helped fund the expedition. In 1966, a second specimen of Heterodontosaurus, consisting of a near-complete articulated skeleton, was discovered at the Voisine locality in the Elliot Formation of the Stormberg group of rock formations, giving a much better understanding of the animal. These finds were remarkably important to the understanding of dinosaur evolution, as prior, next to no early Ornithischian dinosaurs were known. Heterodontosaurus helped establish that Ornithischia and Saurischia were directly related and that Dinosauria is a natural monophyletic group, something not previously thought to be the case. Since then, several additional specimens, including multiple skulls, have been recovered, and reaching around 3 foot 10 inches to 5 foot 9 inches, or 1.18 to 1.75 meters in length, and around 4.4 to 22 pounds, or 2 to 10 kilograms in weight. Whilst Heterodontosaurus was small for a dinosaur, it was one of the largest members of its family. The skull was elongated, narrow, and triangular when viewed from the side. The fronts of the jaws are covered in a horny beak, and it had 3 types of teeth. The upper jaw, small incisor-like teeth, followed by long, canine-like tusks. There was a gap that divided the tusks from the chisel-like cheek teeth further back. The body was short with a long tail, Five-fingered forelimbs were long and relatively robust, whereas the hind limbs were long and slender with four toes. This ancient bipedal dinosaur is thought to have been herbivorous or possibly omnivorous, feeding upon a variety of plants, insects, and possibly small vertebrates. Speaking of small vertebrates, Megazostrodon is an extinct genus of basal mammaliforms belonging to the order Morganocodonta, which lived throughout West Europe and Africa from the Ratian of the late Triassic to the Hetagian of the early Jurassic, some 205 to 199 million years ago. The first known remains of Megazostrodon, consisting of a partial skull and jaw, were discovered in 1966 in the Elliot Formation of Lesotho, southern Africa, by paleontologist and archaeologist Ion Rudner. It was first described by A. W. Crompton and F. A. Jenkins, Jr. in 1968, who named the animal Megazostrodon ruderi, literally meaning large girdle tooth in Greek, referring to the large external sagel of the animal's upper molars. The civic name honors Rudner for her discovery. Since then, several teeth have been recovered, and in 2015, a partial skeleton representing a second species, M. chenali, was recovered from Saint Nicolas de Port, France. It is named after the French paleontologist Emmanuel Chenal. Reaching around 3.9 to 4.7 inches, or 10 to 12 centimeters in length, Megazostrodon was a small shrew-like animal. Although considered to be a close relative of mammals, it did have some non-mammalian characteristics inherited from its predecessors. The first two vertebrae, the atlas and the axis, were still unfused as in earlier cynodonts, and only had three sacral vertebrae instead of the usual mammalian five. An inner clavicle is also present, which is still present in monotremes but lost in the line leading to therian mammals. Megazostrodon was an insectivore with teeth adapted for chewing and crunching through hard arthropod shells. In large regions of its brain associated with the sense of hearing and smell show it was likely nocturnal, occupying an ecological niche similar to modern shrews. Next up is Dracovenator, which is an extinct genus of neotheropod dinosaurs which lived approximately 201 to 192 million years ago during the early part of the Jurassic period in what is now South Africa. The first remains of Dracovenator, consisting of a partial skull, was discovered in the Upper Drumbo Farm locality of the Upper Elliot Formation, which is part of the Stormberg Group in the Eastern Cape Province, South Africa. It was collected by James Kitching and Regent Lucas Huma in 1980. The duo would also recover a second partial skull in 1981, which they originally assigned to Centarsus rhodiensis. Both the holotype and paratype specimens were housed in the fossil collection of the Evolutionary Studies Institute, part of the School of Geosciences at the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg, South Africa. It is here that in 2005, Adam M. Yates would formally describe the holotype and redescribe the paratype, finding them both to belong to the same animal, which was then named Dracovenator regenti, with Dracovenator being a contraction of the Latin words Draco, meaning dragon, and venator, meaning hunter. Thus, dragon hunter. Draco refers to the discovery in the foothills of Drakensberg, which is the Dragon's Mountain in the Dutch language. The specific name, regenti, is named in honor of the late Regent Lucas Huma. Reaching an estimated 18 to 21 feet, or 5.5 to 6.5 meters in length, and around 6.5 to 8 feet, or 1.98 to 2.44 meters tall, and around 550 to 1,100 pounds, or 250 to 500 kilograms in weight, Dracovenator was a medium-sized, moderately built bipedal carnivorous theropod dinosaur, and it would have been the largest known predator of the Elliot Formation. However, unfortunately, the holotype cranial material has since been lost, and no new fossils of Dracovenator have currently been found. Next up, we have Massospondylus, a genus of non-crocodiliform crocodilomorph, which lived throughout what is today Africa during the early Jurassic period, some 292 million years ago. The holotype specimen of Massospondylus, consisting of a partial skeleton with near-complete skull of a juvenile, was first discovered in 1988 by James Kitching during a field expedition in Eagles Crag, a farm near Barkly East in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. At the time, Kitching was director of the Evolutionary Studies Institute of the University of Witwatersrand in Johannesburg. Kitching brought the holotype specimen back to the Institute, where he described it with fellow researcher Christopher Gow. Together, they misidentified the new species of crocodilomorph and assigned the fossils to an existing crocodilomorph species, Petitictosaurus levisauri. Over a decade later, in 2002, two researchers visiting from abroad, Jim Clark and Hans-Dieter Suess, redescribed the fossils, ascribing them the genus name Ledumahadi, which is derived from the Greek meaning fast-running crocodile. The species name Leptorhynchus refers to its gracile snout. Unfortunately, the skull material of Ledumahadi holotype was lost, and no new fossils have yet been yielded from the Elliot Formation. However, a dedicated research lab based at the Evolutionary Studies Institute has led several field expeditions to localities where Elliot Formation rocks have been exposed with the hopes of finding more fossil material. Reaching around 20 inches or 52 centimeters in length, Ledumahadi was a small, gracile, non-crocodiliform crocodilomorph and had unusually long, elongated limbs, with its hind limbs being slightly longer than its front limbs. Unlike modern crocodiles, Ledumahadi was a cursorial terrestrial predator. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have Ledumahadi. Apologies, I needed to take my blood pressure medicine. Ledumahadi is a genus of lemurosaurid sauropodomorph dinosaur which lived throughout what is now South Africa during the Hattagian to the Silurian stages of the early Jurassic period, around 201 to 195 million years ago. The first remains of Ledumahadi, consisting of a partial skeleton including several back, neck, and tail vertebrae, a rib, an ulna, a pedal ungule, a humerus, and a femur, were recovered from the Begensel farm in the Free State province of South Africa in 1990 by James Kitching. However, it wouldn't be until 2018 that the creature would be formally described and named as Ledumahadi mafube by Blair McPhee, Roger Benson, Jennifer Botha Brink, Immense Bordy, and Johan Connier, with the name Ledumahadi meaning giant thunderclap in the Sesotho language. Reaching around 6.6 to 9.9 feet or 2 to 3 meters tall at the hips, and around 29.5 to 32.8 feet or 9 to 10 meters in length, and around 26,000 pounds or 12,000 kilograms in weight. Ledumahadi is thought to have been the largest land animal to exist up until the early Jurassic. Sporting a shorter neck and longer tail, this quadrupedal herbivore would have had very large, robust forelimbs, consistent with those of its relatives. And unlike those of later sauropods, these limbs were naturally flexed, as opposed to being purely columnar. As always, take care to my guys, gals, non-binary pals. Happy Dinosaur Day and happy Pride Month.